Well, Jake Berry, him, Greg Selber, me, him. We're down to playoff time. We got one more week to go, man. We've had some history made. It looks like for the first time ever, Roma will get in the playoffs if they can finish their business. Two La Jolla teams. A lot of stuff to talk about on the show. Last regular season effort, as it were.
Yeah, and you probably had one of the better games last week that you could have won to. I mean, just the end of the former Mercedes Tiger Stadium.
The end of an era, that's right. I had no idea that Tiger Stadium was going down the tubes to be replaced by a wonderful new school closer, new stadium closer to the school. So I got over there. All the Hottentots and Pottentots were there, man. I had state senators and whatnot. Pete Vela, the old Mercedes coach, was there. He's not old, but he was the coach of Mercedes in the old days. Because actually, he's still a nice-looking guy in the 60s, yeah. And boy, he's a Sharpie. I like him. Good guy, great coach. So anyway, I didn't know that was the case. And I also didn't know that Rene Paredes was going to throw for almost 500 yards. I mean, my story, I compared him to Roethlisberger. You like that one? Yeah, that's pretty good. You know?
It's true. Big guy who can wing the ball.
Man, Roethlisberger, 6 touchdowns the other day. Anyway, Mercedes against PSG Southwest. The trip was great because I loved the venerable stadium. There were some veterans there who had been there in the 50s and 60s. It was really kind of cool, man. One of those nights that there aren't many of them because it's not very often that a very classic old stadium goes out with such a crazy game, man. It was 58 points scored in the first half of that game.
Yeah, and you know, you got to see Mercedes do what they've been doing all year, which is to throw up a ton of points, but also give away a ton.
Yeah, well, and the thing is, you know, they score so quickly sometimes that they were scoring with big bombs and big quick breaks, and PSG Southwest was grinding it out, running the ball. But Portales had 134. I mean, he threw the ball well, too. It was just a very good offensive game. The defenses were struggling a step behind. I don't think either one of those defenses is bad at all. I mean, Mercedes, if you look at the personnel in their defense, that's very good. But Southwest is legitimate, man. That's what I wanted to go see. Coach Reyes' team, they play like him. They're stoic, and they're hardcore, and they get after it. I was impressed with them. They didn't come out on top, but that's because Preston was just throwing bombs, man, moonshots. That guy's something else.
Now, how was the running game for Mercedes that night?
Well, Isaac Vela came back, ran 4 times for 30 yards. He looked a little ginger, but they're working him back in. He should be ready to go come playoff time. Daniel Martinez, number 7, the slot guy, will also play running back. He rushed for almost 60 yards. So they're gonna find people to carry the ball just to take some of the load off of Presses. But man, with his receivers, boy, I'll tell you what. I've thought for years that Roel Garcia was one of the best players in the Valley, and he just proved it the other night, man. He had 4 catches for 104, had a bunch of tackles, had a pick 6 all the way to the house. That guy's dirty, man. He's a great player. I love him. Awesome.
Yeah, and you know, what I like about this year is that Mercedes is going to face a team from the Valley, at least in the first round.
Yes, they will.
So it won't be that every year where they're playing Cal Allen.
Yeah. So then the team they will face, probably, if they win, Roma Gladiators. And I read somewhere that the paper said it was 8 years. Look, it's 1990. They've been playing football for almost 25 years, never made the playoffs. If they beat a Valley View team that's given up 377 points in 9 games, they'll be in the playoffs. And boy, don't you know they're excited over there in Starr County.
Yeah, and I mean, what Coach Habecker has been able to do over there is incredible. I mean, a couple of years ago, they were trying to ousted him out there after he had built that program up, and he's done a great job. I mean, he's put together great running backs. Yep. He's put together great teams that have almost made it. Yeah. And finally, I'm very happy for them because they're finally breaking through.
Roma scored 37 points against Pioneer. That was a third of the points they scored all year. They got 111 points. 37 came in one game for you mathematicians out there. They're peaking at the right time. You know, they look good early. Then they hit that stretch where they played the tough teams. They took a couple of whoopings, you know, but they didn't quit, and they beat Valley View, and they're in against Mercedes. And hey, anything can happen in the playoffs. But right now, so Roma looking good. And staying out there to the west, this is western Hidalgo County, but still, there will be 2 La Jolla teams in the playoffs from 6A. Yeah, man. Incredible. They should be happy. It's the first time that a team from La Jolla has been in the playoffs since 2007. That was the first year of 956 Sports, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Wasn't 2007?
Yeah, when La Jolla went, 3 years?
They went 3 deep. Here's what happened. They beat United, and they beat the Bears, and they lost to Judson. They'd also lost to Judson in 03. That's the 2 greatest La Jolla teams after 2000, because they had some really nasty teams in. Yeah. So La Jolla returns to the playoffs. They beat Road 23-6, and that defense was tough, man. La Jolla's defense came to play. It's hard to hold Road to 6 points.
Yeah, and what we got to see was the team that played really well at the beginning of the year kind of fluttered a little bit, in the middle, and they were able to, they're picking up the right wins right now.
Well, the thing is, they really felt like I think they could make it. And now they have, and I think, Julio Garcia, the quarterback, Coyote quarterback, he was quoted in the paper saying, when he was a little kid, he watched the Coyotes and everybody feared them. And that's true. They were a very fierce team, very athletic, kind of hard-nosed. And so he and those guys want to bring that program back to a situation where it's a contender for the playoffs. They've made it. I'll tell you, I've been impressed with Yanni Villarreal, 32. Watch the videos. That little dude can hit, man. He punished some guy for road, just erased him from the face of the earth, man. I don't know who it was, and it doesn't matter, but it was a great hit. Ordinelas is the other linebacker, and Eric Marroquin, the sophomore defensive end, had 3.5 sacks.
Yeah.
No, that team's playing good, man.
Yeah, and what I like is that this La Jolla team is different from the other ones because they can throw the ball.
Hey, if you look at the clips on the huddle, or not the huddle is dead.
Yeah.
Huddle.
The show.
Right, yeah, this is the show now. If you look at huddle, HUDL, Julio's throwing the ball well. He's making quick, sharp reads. He's throwing balls out there. They're getting yards, man. No, I like that team. Llanos is a good running back. He's going to get 1,000 if he has a big game against Lincoln. Even if they lose to Lincoln, which I don't see happening, and although it's a city rivalry, so be careful. Since they beat Rowe, they have the tiebreaker. They'll end up tied with Rowe if they lose, but if they win, they're in clean. Clarence Stevens. That's great, man. It really is. Good for La Jolla.
Yeah, and
now they play United, so good luck. No, but,
yeah. But look, making the playoffs is a big step for them because, for the longest time, you're playing La Jolla.
Right. We got that.
You're playing one of the La Jolla teams.
Right.
And you can usually chalk those up as a W. But this year,
no, you cannot.
Especially Palmview. I mean, they played really well against Memorial.
Well, they had the lead early. They let it go a little bit. When you run against a kid, that's hard to do.
Yeah.
He now has 200 yards in at least every game this year. Palmview, back to them for a minute, they have a pretty underrated defense. They've been stopping people pretty well all year, especially the teams that aren't that great. So they lost last week. They got McAllen this week. Only thing I'm worried about with the Lobos is they have some injury troubles. They lost a couple of linemen, but I think it's day to day. They're going to play. And I think one of the running backs, Freddie Villarreal, got hurt. But man, Bernal picked up the slack. He had 140. That guy's tough too. They got two good running backs.
Yeah. What I want to see out of Palmview is I'd like to see them, mix it up a little bit more than what they do.
Yeah, they're one of the teams that pass the least. Now here's the thing, they're going to probably end up playing LBJ. And that team actually is for real. They took United down to the wire. They only lost 17-14. They don't score a lot of points. They don't give up a lot of points. They're like Del Rio used to be with that good defense. The LBJ defense is solid. So against Palmview, it's going to be like 14-13, something like that. If that's the matchup that we get, and it looks like we are.
Yeah, but if it is 14-13, it's a good time. It's a good matchup for them because
as long as it's Palmview,
gives them a chance.
Right. As long as Palmview gets 14, we'll be cool.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced that the 29-6A is that good. Of course, every year I say that they beat us 3 out of 4, but let us see. Now, McAllen and Memorial are both in. McAllen has his last game against Palmview. Who does Memorial play? They play Mission, right? Okay, Mission got a win last week. We got to give the Eagles some credit. They got it done, man.
I mean, they did what they needed to do, which was just kind of break that streak that they're on
and score some points. They had scored 29 the week before that, so they're starting to come on. It's a little bit late for them, but you know what? Every time you can win as a football team, I don't care what it gets you in the end. It is a win there, and you build a little confidence. And I bet you they'll be back in the hunt next year. So McAllen, ironically, if Palmview gets LBJ. They might end up with Alexander, man. And now here's the thing. I've been researching Alexander, and they're not nearly as good as they were in the past. They still have a Swain, but you know what they're missing? They don't have a dynamic receiver.
No.
Their biggest guy,
always.
Yeah, he's got like 60-something catches for about 600 yards. In other words, they don't make the big plays like they did when they had those other guys, Skaggs and them. Right? Skaggs,
they
Xavier
had those great running backs. Right. They could just mix it up.
No, they don't have it this year. So Swain is like a one-man team, and they ain't good enough to be a prohibitive favorite. I'll tell you what, though, for McAllen, that's a tough first-round game still.
Yeah, because, look, that Alexander team, even though they haven't done as well as we thought they would after beating Sherryland, they did beat Sherryland.
Yeah, they did.
So, they can chalk that one up and say, look, we beat one of the best teams in the
Let's see how they do against United. That's always that's the game of the year in Laredo every year. If it shakes out that way, then it'll mean Del Rio against Memorial, and they've played them before in the playoffs a couple of times, and quite frankly, I think it'd be one of them 45-10 games. I don't see Del Rio hanging with Memorial.
No, I don't see them holding Trevor Spades at all.
Yeah, we'll get there. We're going to talk playoffs, but we wanted to kind of wrap up that 10th week, head to the 11th. So in this district, in 36A, there is nothing really to decide.
No, it's pretty much drawn out.
Well, congratulations again to them La Jolla teams, because it's been, like I said, since 07. The Coyotes were 11-49, and that was a long struggle. They paid their dues, and now it's paid off. They didn't quit. They're going to make the playoffs, and so is Palmview. That's pretty slick. When we come back, we're going to go down south. We're going to go to the middle, talk about those two 6A districts whose teams will play off against each other. A little rematch fever in the air, Jake. We'll be back.